Hi, I'm Tammy Ngubeni, and welcome to the Get Up and Level Up podcast. We're coming to you today from the Project Management and Grant Delivery Workshops brought to you by the services SETA. Now, this is a very important step for the organization, which is currently under administration. The focus is how do you improve accountability? How do you improve governance? How do you improve performance? Part of the workshop is the launch of the Product Management Unit. Now, this unit will focus on how projects are delivered, how grants are managed, as well as on how outcomes are measured. So today's conversations are going to ensure that we go beyond the tick box experiences. The granting of funding is not in and of itself a measure of success. It's important, yes, it is. But perhaps what's most important are the sustainable, life-changing results for the beneficiaries. Joining us today is really one of the key stakeholders as far as higher education is concerned, as far as the work of the SETAs, and none other than Dr. Minnie Gondwe, the Deputy Minister for the Department of Higher Education and Training. Good to have you with us, Doc.
Thank you so much, Tammy. It's lovely being here.
I was really intrigued and quite inspired by your presentation a little bit earlier on, and you made some key insights, and perhaps that's a good place to start. You spoke about gaps that exist between policy and outcomes. And maybe that's a good place to start. Talk to us about those gaps and how programs like the Project Management Unit are going to be integral in closing those gaps.
So, Tammy, I think it's important for me to start here. The services SETA is currently under administration. It's one of 3 SETAs that are currently under administration, LG SETA and the construction SETA. And this is the one SETA that I have been delegated by the minister to oversee and exercise executive oversight over. And in his recent State of the Nation address, the president was at pains to say we need a skills development revolution. We need to start seeing skills development at a scalable and impactful level in the country. I think currently what we see a lot of is skills development happening in little pockets, and it's not just creating that impact. Tammy, these are extraordinary times. We've got alarmingly high levels of youth unemployment. We need to give our people hope that this government cares. This government wants to do something about their lived experience. And so I think that's why, when I was requested by Services SETA to come and speak at this workshop, it was important for me to emphasize that it cannot be business as usual with SETAs. People are getting frustrated with SETAs. They get billions of rands, they get 80% in the skills levy that employers pay. The other 20% goes to the National Skills Fund. But we're still grappling with unemployment. We're not seeing impactful projects coming from them, wholesale, scalable, impactful projects. We're not seeing outcomes. We're not seeing results. And so it was important for me to use this platform to say, in your discussions, impact should be right at the core. The work that you do around, grant delivery, project management has to translate into impact. It has to transform and impact the lived experience of a young person.
And maybe that's how I want to come in, because you also spoke about impact earlier on. You said activities are not tantamount to impact. There's over 20 billion rand.
Certificates, these certificates that SETAs produce, they're not tantamount to employment. Activities, inputs and outputs are not tantamount to results and outcomes, because the lived experience of young people has not changed. And remember, SETAs were created to be catalysts for skills development. And I think that's the revolution that the president wants to see. And he suggested that when we skill and train, there should be a dual system in place, a twinning arrangement in place, where you skill and train knowing where the young person is going to end up in terms of employment. And that's where you find that students will come through a SETA program, be certificated, and basahlale ekhaya. They're not doing anything. So I like the idea. In fact, I love the idea of a twinning arrangement, of a dual system. I think Austria has it, Germany has it, where you don't skill and train without knowing where that young person is going to end up.
It's going to be an entire pipeline.
Exactly, a value, exactly.
And I want to pick up on something else here. Yes, there is the lived experience of the young person that goes through the skills acquisition process and then employment at the tail end of it. But also what the Auditor General has found with some of the other sectors is with the budget that's allocated to them, there are a lot of ghost expenditure, ghost projects where money is spent, but you actually don't see what happens.
In fact, the AG has said you even find learners going from one SETA to another because so they enroll for another program. And that is showing that there is a serious problem with the system. Not even just the ghost employees that you I think you spoke of,
projects, yes.
Ghost projects that you spoke about. But we also need to have projects that are impactful, projects that can make a difference. So one of the things that I've asked the services SETA to do, I said to them, you also need to invest in the existing infrastructure, invest in our TVETs and our CET. Because another concern is that they build these skill centers that are now white elephants. No one is using them. They're vandalized, and the like. And I said to them, you've got to invest in the existing infrastructure and our TVETs and our CETs. You've got to support our TVETs and our CETs. And we have plans to roll out skills development programs in 3 community colleges, within our ecosystem. And I said, I don't want programs that are just programs in J. I want programs that can lead to employability, that create pathways to employability. So we must choose programs that we know once those learners are done, the students are done with those programs, they're not going to be sitting at home. Because we cannot have students rotating within, the AG also found that you find that there are students that are over the age of 60. So there are lots of problems. And I think that goes to speak to having a centralized system for all SETAs so that they know who's in the system, they know where they are, and they're able to find them, But just coming back to project management and grant delivery, I think I also emphasized the need for projects to be managed in a manner that's responsive, in a manner that speaks to good governance, in a manner that's ethical. And we need to see value for money, Tammy, because that is one of the complaints that we receive around SETAs. They get these billions of rands, but we're not seeing the reciprocal value for money. So we need to start seeing a return on that investment.
Let me see if my definition is akin to yours. You defining value at the end of the day is young people in employment,
exactly,
young people's lives transformed.
Exactly.
So this project management unit to me sounds like it's not something that has to be just internal within a particular SETA, but one that oversees all of the SETAs.
Yes,
able to
yes. I think we really perhaps we need to have one as well in the department where we can then support SETAs in terms of managing projects and making sure that those projects are impactful. But I have to tell you about a summit I recently attended. In fact, I was a panelist. It was on outcomes-based financing, and I don't know if you know much about outcomes-based financing. So outcomes-based finance is really simply put is you pay for outcomes and results. You don't pay for activities. And I was, in talking about outcomes-based financing, I was also trying to showcase what we've done around the Jobs Boost Outcome Fund. That is an initiative that, is spearheaded by the presidency and the National Skills Fund. So they've put money, but what they pay for is for not only young people being skilled and trained, but for young people being placed in meaningful employment. Now, unfortunately, I also think that our regulatory and procurement framework allows us to pay for things that are not even there, Tammy. That's why you find that people can run away with imali before even there's performance on a project or a contract.
Yeah.
We don't pay for outcomes. And so I think if we can have more projects that are paying for results and outcomes as opposed to activities.
So it's more tiered.
Yes.
As far as the disbursement.
Exactly. You only pay once there's been performance.
So
in
you
terms
pay for operations at first, obviously, because those are the running costs
Yes,
that
yes.
every company
Yes,
will have.
yes.
And then there is the bulk, the profit, basically.
Yes,
the whatever
but you
markup
pay
there
for
is.
results and you pay for outcomes. You
Yes.
play when students have been placed or young people have been placed in meaningful and sustainable employment.
Yeah.
And I think we need to move. And the president in his recent State of the Nation address also mentioned that the National Skills Fund would also be moving in that direction to be an outcomes-based. Because I think the worry there is that, the NSF is seen as as a cash cow. You just get money, and whether you perform or not, they will give you the money. And we need to now start paying for performance.
And how is this going to differ from the currently existing workplace skills programs, the readiness programs that a lot of the SETAs have, where, one has qualified, but then you get placed at a workplace so you can get that experience. And it's at the discretion of the employer
yes.
at the end to decide whether or not they.
But that's the beauty of outcomes-based financing insofar as youth employment and a fund like the Jobs Boost Outcome Fund, is that you pay for the placement. You insist on a learner being placed in meaningful. I always say, as much as work-based learning is important, internships are important, it's not employment.
That's right.
And so we need to have more programs that the end goal, the outcome, the end game is always seeing our young people in employment, being able to put food on the table. But also entrepreneurship is very important.
I was literally going there.
Because I think we also need to wean our young people from wanting to work for people all the time.
Because that's the psychology, right?
Yes.
Be an employer.
Our young people are so innovative. I mean, I'm educated up to PhD level, and I'd never been in a TVET until I became a deputy minister of higher. And I say it, I have no shame in saying it. But when I got into TVET, I realized how important the work that they do, that bricklaying, that welding, that plumbing. Those jobs cannot be replaced by AI.
That's
Tammy.
right.
And I mean, the chairs we're sitting on, an artisan was involved in this, the table, the roads that we drove on. So they do such critical work, and the students are so innovative. Even when it comes to AI. And Tammy, I've been involved a lot in partnerships and stuff like that. I'm delegated partnerships as well, securing forging partnerships with the private sector. Recently, we just finalized an MOU with Google. We have one with Microsoft. We want to take a lot. But all these partnerships aimed at creating pathways for employment. Because for me, employment is, I always say our success as a sector is not how many young people we certificate, how many young people we enroll, or how many graduates, but where they end up.
It's sustainability for themselves and their families.
Where they end up once they exit our sector. That's where our success lies. Like when you were a student, teacher work would be proud of you because of who you are now. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Yes. Yeah. So that's where our success lies. And education is a means to an end, not an end in itself. Mm-hmm. What is that end? For you to utwale umsebenzi. Yes. Hey, that's why we all went to schools. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we need to give our young people that hope. We need to ensure that we are all geared towards ensuring that they can get a meaningful employment. But more importantly, they can employ themselves because, our economy is not growing as fast as it should be. So the chances of us absorbing everybody who needs employment are they're non-existent. Let me be honest with you. But we need to see more young people then being able to start their own businesses where they can employ themselves and other people.
And especially in the age of AI, as you see a lot of careers being replaced.
Yes.
Where information is no longer really the
currency.
It's just the entry point.
Exactly.
So there needs to be something beyond
Yes,
that.
definitely.
Deputy Minister, I know I do need to let you go.
Yes, my dear.
But there's one question I really want to ask you. What role do platforms like this, the Get Involved, Level Up podcast, play in strengthening systems and building awareness for our community?
They're very important. I mean, any kind of platform where we're able to share the work that we do as government or any of our entities, we have oversight over 100 entities. We have 50 TVET colleges, 26 public universities, 21 SETAs, 9 community colleges. We've got NSFAS, so we are huge. So we need all the coverage we can get in terms of the work that we do. So they're very important for making people understand that government is really trying to reposition itself, and we are alive to the challenges that we're facing as a country. more particularly the government of national unity, and that's why we only have 3 priorities, including economic growth and job creation, and also combating the high cost of living and poverty, and building a capable ethical developmental state. But I think platforms like this really give people a window into what we're trying to do, and the work is difficult, Tammy, because we need to all, and remember, I always say education is not only our business; it's everybody's business.
That's right. Takes a village.
It takes a village, definitely. And I think even during my address, I emphasized that, this work cannot be done by one entity, one department, or one body alone. It really needs that value chain, that working together where we understand what it is that we aim to do. So it's about bringing everybody on board and making sure that we all are focused on one goal, and that's to ensure that our young people are skilled, they're trained, but more importantly, they can find work.
As you're speaking, literally just flashed through my mind. Ogoti, these are the type of things that you discuss at a family meeting.
Yes.
This is family meeting agenda.
Yeah.
It's a national priority.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Yeah. And you're my sister.
You're my sister.
Yeah. And we are having our Papa Mhodu, and we are talking about this issue. Yeah.
Deputy Minister. Thank you so much.
And you're so beautiful in person.
Oh, ngiyabonga. Ngifana nawe.
Oh, ngiyabonga. Oh, ngiyabonga kakhulu. You've made my day.
I would take that on the side. There you have it, the Deputy Minister for Higher Education and Training, just encouraging us all to get involved, level up. Let's do this. It's a family affair.
It is.
Now, as you know, project management is a mammoth task, especially where you've got large amounts of data and moving parts. We also have a real-life example, an expert in the field, one could say, who has a great, immense experience in managing this, and that's the CEO of SASA, the South African Social Grants Agency, Mr. Themba Matlo. Good to have you with us.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Now, after 2 decades as SASA, handling data is something that you do extremely well, especially that you handle, I think the numbers you mentioned are almost close to 30 million, and that includes different types of grants, including the presidential grant, etc. Could you paint a picture for us about the number of grants that you actually handle, the data that is within your sphere?
Yeah, no, thank you very much again, Tammy. SASA manages quite large volume of data. We pay almost 19 million normal social grants. And with the added COVID grant, you'll remember that during the COVID pandemic, the president did pronounce that we need to pay a temporary grant. It's a temporary relief that people apply every month. So that grant itself, we manage almost 17 million applications every month. And then through all the proper process, we then approve about 8 million. So that's what goes into final payment. And when you look at that, yes, you're right that you pay almost 30 million. So you will imagine that that is the largest population that we actually pay within the social protection in South Africa. When you look at the population of South Africa, I mean, we're sitting around 45% of what we do in terms of payment of these people. So that's quite huge. And the Department of Social Development transfers about 270 billion rand annually to SASA to disperse all these grants that we are talking about. Yeah, you're right. We do have quite large data set that we're managing. Yeah.
So as SETA found it prudent to have you here, so you could perhaps share your best practices and the experiences from your perspective. What would you say are some of the lessons that the SETAs can learn from an organization such as yourself?
Yeah, I think firstly, SETA will we are very glad to be here and engage with SETA because there's quite different entities that are managed through SETA and also serving the very same people, especially when we look at the child support grant. Because the child support grant, we're saving people from the age of 1 to 18 and 21 years old. And beyond that, these people actually exit the grant system. Then this is the database that we share with different SETA institutions. That is the people that they must connect to economic opportunities and also skills development. So we are actually the institution that carries the largest database of people that are so unemployed, and for SETA to benefit from that. And also importantly is the data integrity, is the data that we have, the data exchange program. So the SETAs will also learn that we need to exchange data, get into the memorandum of agreement with them, because we do what we call monthly validation of data with different banks, just to check the people that are in our system are actually the right people who must receive the grant. The other thing that we do, we've got a real-time data exchange with the Home Affairs, just to prove the proof of life. So those are some of the innovations that we've put in. For example, we are recently running a project we call e-life certification. People must use their facial expression and their fingerprints so that they actually confirm that they are the living people who must apply for the grant. So I guess the same will happen with the SETAs, because people will apply for grant funding, and you ought to know that these are the right people.
Actually, spot on, because the conversation with the Deputy Minister was exactly along those paths. How do you ensure that a young person doesn't go from SETA to SETA, course to course, without actually taking the skills that they've learned and then taking them into the workforce? Because the whole idea of the SETAs is to capacitate young people, give them skills for them to move through the value chain, get employed and start a life for themselves. So being able to have this data exchange is going to be very beneficial in exactly that type of circumstance.
It's very fundamental, because even with the people that we pay for social grant, for example, it is our intention that we don't want a highly dependent system where they entirely depend on the grant and then you become a welfare state. The country is moving towards a developmental state. That's why it's very important that your SETA play the functions that they play. So our importance is of existence. We have to share that data with the SETAs so that these people are developed in the multiplicity of skills. Once they are developed and they found employment, we are able to offload them from the grant system, because now they become sustainable. And that is the program that we are running, because we also have to guard against the public fiscus in the work that we do, so that we don't just pay people who are already working. They're connected to other SETA programs, they've been developed, they've been employed. So that's exactly why this meeting is this session is very important.
And looking at this 45% of the population in one way or other benefiting from social grants, that is unacceptably high for any nation. And so that's why it's so important. I just see the connection between SASSA supporting those who don't have, when they don't have, the SETAs capacitating them to gain the skills that will then lead to them becoming independent. But we have seen, as we know, that there are times when there are delays in payment. What leads to that from a SASSA perspective?
Look, I think we've been running a very successful payment system where you will see that almost 95% of people that we put through the payment value chain, they get their grants. You will find exception, 5% at most, and that will caused by there's few things. For example, now we're running a what you call social review, grant review process, where we send notification for those people that their circumstances have changed. Now, some of the people don't come forward when they get notification. What we then do, we delay their payment as a strategy to want them to come. We'll delay with 1 or 2 days.
Oh, you're fishing.
No, we're not.
Yes, you are. You dangling a bit of bait at the end, and you're throwing this in to reel them in.
Because they know we've sent a notification that please come forward. We've picked up your data from other SETA institutions that you are now connected to economic opportunities. And if you do that in terms of the law, you no longer qualify for the grant. So you need to come forward. But as you know, money is so interesting, people don't want to come.
And you can't actually delete them without their consent? Is that
No,
what you
we
said?
can't. Yeah, the law is very clear. It says send notification. You must start sending for a month, second month, third month. If they don't come in third month, which will be 90 days in terms of the law, you'll have to lapse that grant. So that's what we do, in making sure that we do have the integrity of this system in place.
So going back to the project management and the structures that enable consistent, reliable delivery month after month, what would you say are the key fundamentals and the disciplines that need to be in place in order that you deliver and that level of consistency and excellence is there?
Yeah, with SASA, we're running. We piggybacking on the digital transformation program that the presidency has established and launched. Importantly, because we're leveraging on technological advancement and innovations. And that is quite a huge project's capability that we must put in the organization. For example, launching the online application is a key project that on a monthly basis we need to see how many people are coming through the online application. And when you manage that, you work together with the different network providers so that you make sure that in every area that you are, there's strong network capability, that the people are able to access the network for them to be able to apply. Mm-hmm. So that online application project is a massive project that government through SASA is coming up with, which we are monitoring all the time. So it's one of the key projects that we are putting in place, as we are leveraging the technology. And we're also bringing what we call queue management system in different SASA offices to manage the long queues that you see. Because we're putting a project where the project can respond to the people's needs. That when they come in, that queue management, it sort of delineates different type of services that you are coming in for. You don't have to queue if you just come for inquiries, Right. Yeah, as opposed to someone who comes for application. So those are some of the project management capability that we are having in the organization, especially from the technological front. So there's quite a range of them that we are doing.
So it's really very systems heavy.
It's system heavy. That's why we call it the modernization and automation of processes. And remember, we're also moving away from this issue of our beneficiaries having a lot of documents with them when they go to SASA offices. So the online application help us to do the scanning, downloading of documents, to just apply. When we introduced the social relief of distress system, the COVID, you remember there was a lockdown.
Yeah.
It's a project that we've managed in a short space of time, where it did not require people to physically go to SASA offices. People had to apply online, And that was a very smooth project that we ever came with as a country.
As far as access to digital infrastructure that will allow everybody to have access to those type of online services, what type of penetration have you found? Somebody maybe who is illiterate, how are they going to still continue to have access in a world that's really quickly digitizing and that's moving very heavily into technology?
Yeah, unfortunately, our strong collaboration with other government departments is very helpful. Because you will know that the setup in the rural communities of traditional authorities and tribal authorities, we have our people scattered all over. So like when I presented, I indicated that we've got almost more than 1,200 service offices across the country, which reside close to where the traditional authorities are. And then we constantly engage with the traditional authorities, traditional leaders, to assist, with those people that stays in those areas with the application. And then they do that through their cell phones and all that. And there are also those that come to SASSA offices in the rural areas because they don't have data. But we have now rolled out what we call a guest Wi-Fi.
Guest Wi-Fi.
Guest Wi-Fi.
Okay.
So SASSA offices has guest Wi-Fi now. They are able to come in, and we created, some login for any beneficiary who walk in. Without them going to the queue, they can immediately just log in and get the SASSA Wi-Fi, and then does their own application.
And even those who are other, disabled or have other, capacity, they don't have capacity to be able to use, whether they can't see or they can't hear, etc. So that hybrid system still makes sure that nobody is left behind.
Exactly. The hybrid system helps a lot because even in SASSA offices, we do have our help desk customer care agent. That their main job is mainly to look at the express queue, especially for people with disability, the older people, and those that are pregnant.
Right.
So that's the system that we're building. It's more hybrid.
So as we wrap up, Ntate Matlo, you as a specialist in this area, the SETAs say to you, give us the top 5 things that we need to change or we need to implement, whatever number. What would you say to them? What advice would you give to them in order for them to make sure that their project management unit is streamlined, it's effective, and it yields results?
No, I've already indicated to the CEO that I think we need to work on the data exchange program. When we work on the data exchange program, between us and SETA, we formulate memorandum of agreement. And that will help us to do data verification and data exchange on a monthly basis. So that will be one of the most important, because you need to make sure that you address that issue of double dipping. That for us is the key issue that we need to deal with, And also the issue of data integrity. I think we just need to clean our data. We need to have a program that completely clean our data. We also have a system where people come in and apply, but they change their addresses, they change their contacts. And when we want to communicate with these people, beneficiaries of grant, you are not able to get them, whether from SASSA or from the SETA side. So we need to work on that issue. And of course, the issues of the competencies and skills of people that we get. We need to get the right people who are able to assist the people on the ground in terms of the technical know-how and all that. So those are some of the things that we need to work in. And also bring in the systems that are credible. Your system that handle your database. It must be a system that is also credible, and a system that you are able to enhance away from the cyber attack.
Because risk is such a big issue. I was actually thinking about that earlier on when you were talking about the physical offices and the fact that a lot of the data, even though you are migrating to digital, but a lot of that data is still, bricks and mortar, it's still paper. So how do you actually safeguard the integrity of people's information?
Absolutely. That's why we ran a program that we call a scanning program within the modernization process. Out of all the database that we have, we are scanning all these documents and we are securing them into our data server so that you are able to extract. You don't have the physical record. So we're trying to reduce the physical record. And also the efficiency that we are bringing is that make sure that you modernize. You do online application systems so that our people don't carry documents all around. So I think those are some of the high-level initiatives that we're sharing with the SETA.
And as we close off on a bit of a lighter note, any ideas or thoughts of what you're going to call this program between the SETAs and yourselves, the one of data exchange?
No, we have it's just going to be a part of our data verification process. Yeah. So we've already commenced that approach, that initiative with various departments, including SARS. At the bank side, we call it bank verification. So that is the biggest project that we're going to do, data verification program, so that we are able to verify that the people that you are having on the database are the same people that we are having. And so who qualify, who doesn't qualify, so that we avoid the double dipping. So that will be our major focus.
It's going to be a big one. It's going to be a big one. Tate Matlo, we thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
And happy 20th anniversary.
Thank you.
An entire 2 decades of serving the nation and just making sure that everybody has an opportunity at dignity, because I think that's what you do.
Absolutely. No, we're also delighted that I think over decades we've changed the life of the people. You see where SASA come from to today, I mean, it's quite massive. So it must be celebrated.
Right. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
That's the CEO of SASA, Mr. Themba Matlo. Also here at the project management unit launch are various SETAs who are not only stakeholders, but are also the key implementers of the PMU. And joining us this afternoon is from the food and beverages sector, Noktula Selamulela. Good to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a bit about the food and bevs SETA, what it is that you do. I think it's very self-explanatory, but let me allow you to go into details for those who may not be aware.
Okay, so we're one of the 21 SETAs, which stands for Sector Education and Training Authority. We are in the value chain, which is called the secondary sector, which deals with processing of food and beverages. We are mandated to develop skills of our people, employed and unemployed, on different learning interventions. That will include provision of bursaries for the employed and some of the unemployed. We mostly focus on the missing middle for the unemployed. Skills programs, learnerships, artisan development, candidacy programs, just different learning programs that we find. That is what we are mandated to do.
So mostly the processing of food, can you break down what the processing involved?
What does it mean? Okay. So it's nice to ask that question because we always get confused. People always get confused by who we are or what we do. So we are, like when I said we are in the secondary sector, you've got farm to market. So I'll just make an example. It's always easy to make an example to describe our industry. So you can plant a tomato and take it straight to table and you eat it, whether you cook it or do something else. But you can also process it and change its nature or form into a tomato juice or tomato sauce. So there's processing. So when you do that, you're in the secondary effect, and then we're dealing with the manufacturers. So anybody that changes the food from its normal source, its original source, to an edible in a different form is what you do when it comes to processing. And examples of companies that we get funding from in terms of our levies who are processing are your Coca-Colas, your SAPs, your Nestle's, your Tiger Brands, different companies. And then the same product that they produce, then you take it to the market through wholesale and retail.
So which are your quote-unquote sister SETAs? The ones in Sebenzana, because there's an entire value chain.
So the primary sector will be the agricultural sector, which is your agri-SETA. Then we are in the secondary sector, which is us food and beverages. And then there is the outliers, which is your wholesale and retail SETA, your transport SETA, which is TETA, your CAT SETA, which then are dealing with catering, hospitality, that's CAT SETA. Those are the ones that we normally work hand in hand with as part of our value chain.
Now, the launch today is for the project management unit. What are the gaps that you have experienced within your own SETA? And how is this project management unit going to address some of those issues?
We are still in the process of really understanding the project management unit. However, the gaps that we have in our SETA is basically the monitoring of the implementation of the projects. So from the contracting phase up until the payment phase, and also just automating the entire process. If it's all the projects are contract based because we enter into contracts with our grant recipients. We indicate what they should do at what time they should do this. They give us their implementation plans. But if you don't have a dedicated contract management or project management, whether it's a unit or people or officials that are responsible for it, it creates a vacuum. And those are the challenges that we might have or we do have at the moment. So my aim today in terms of attending this was just to also learn what other SETAs are doing to address these challenges, because I think they are common challenges.
And what have you found to be quite insightful for you? Have you had any aha moments, or that's actually something I never thought about? Because they've been really insightful presentations so far today.
No, they are very insightful presentations. The one that was relevant for us as for SETA was the one from SASA, because SASA is one of the biggest distributors of grants, and just for them to share how they manage this enormous task, because they've got billions of rands that they're distributing on a monthly basis to over 20 million South Africans. You know, we almost dealing with 500, 800 companies. They're dealing with millions and millions of companies, and how they've enhanced their systems in terms of validation, verification of information. That also talks to us, because when we fund lenders and they say they're unemployed, they never tell us that now I'm receiving funding from SASA, which then creates a double dipping problem. So when they were talking, we said, let's talk about how we can resolve this problem of double dipping. Other than that, they were really insightful presentations in terms of how they implement project management.
We actually had a conversation with the CEO as well, and that's exactly what he highlighted as well. So you'll find young people or learners or beneficiaries getting a stipend from the SETA, but then also about 20 grand now.
Yes.
And so they are literally double dipping. But I also found quite interesting was the presentation and the discussions around artificial intelligence. Any insights there that speak specifically to your SETA for food and beverages that you thought might be quite interesting for implementation?
So artificial intelligence, I mean, we are advocating that. We are also starting to make our employees get used to it. You know, like even the industry is putting processes in place in terms of digital transformation. When he was speaking, and just in terms of efficiencies and how effective it is. I mean, if you're using artificial intelligence, if you haven't used it, you're really behind, because you find a task that you can do the whole day. You are able to like put it in an artificial intelligence platform and get information that assist you. So as a CEO, you are responsible for the entire organization. However, if you really think about it, you don't know everything. You're not a technocrat in everything. But with these tools that are before us now, we are able to get assistance in terms of just basic understanding of something that I would generally not understand. But from a processes point of view, they also are artificial intelligence makes processes actually better, seamless, efficient, and fast.
And talking about that, there's artificial intelligence. You are in trouble if you don't have real intelligence, because then there's an artificial, bot or system that is going to be able to curate all the information from different sources and be able to provide that for you. So I think we're really entering an age and an era where more than information is going to be demanded of us as individuals. So even when you go into the workplace or you start your own business, I think we have to start asking ourselves now, what is the real value that I can bring into the situation that a machine is not going to be able to bring?
The thing is, data is available, and artificial intelligence uses data. So what's important is that the data that you churn out or you share must be accurate and factual. So that's whatever information it requires, because it goes to the web to get the information that produces to you. So it must be reliable. That's why if you use artificial intelligence, it is a disclaimer that this is artificially generated. So please still validate it with your own sources.
And on that very note, Noktula, there are sometimes where ikutshela amanga nje. So mangazi wena.
Yeah,
You're just going to go ahead with something that is actually not accurate. So there's still a need for human being and a human intelligence and interaction there.
I've had arguments about that Jalamanga situation from an artificial intelligence point of view, because what I've realized is that it gives you what you want to hear in terms of how you frame a question. So if you frame a question in a certain way, it responds to your way of asking. So it's quite important for us to understand how to frame a question to get the real information. But obviously, you can't just take something and you don't read it, and then you take it as the gospel truth. You need to read it, and you are able to engage these tools and say, but here, I don't understand. You are contradicting yourself. And then it's almost like you're talking to a person, and those are the things that you learn if you obviously capacitate yourself with understanding how it works. So those are the things that are quite important, because it's here to stay for us to capacitate and develop skills of our people so that they understand how to use these new technologies that are coming through.
It's the power of the question.
It's the power of the question.
It's the power of the question, and AI will mirror you. So if you want to challenge it and you tell it to become a strategist, then it will break things down for you.
Also, remember, tell it not to hallucinate, because it can hallucinate.
It can certainly hallucinate.
Yeah.
One of the things and discussions that we had as well was around ensuring, with the deputy minister, that young people don't get into the SETAs and just end up hopping from one SETA to another, but never really ending up in the workplace. How are you, as the food and beverages SETA, trying to ensure that doesn't become the reality? Abantu who do come through to you will get the skills that they need. Either they start their own businesses or they end up having a job that will change their lives and their families' lives.
It's a difficult question to really give the most perfect answer for it, because it's economics. The realities of life is that people rather go and do perpetual internships versus learnerships or skills development programs because they get stipends, and not necessarily because they require that development of their skill. But from our side, we work with companies, so when they apply to us, we now, in fact, lately, we ask them, what's the percentage of the people that you're trying to train that you're going to absorb, at least within the next 24 months. And we encourage that you can't just apply for the sake of applying to train people. You must also have an opportunity for them to be trained. You can't take 100% and not train 100% and not absorb them. So we have those conversations with the companies that are applying for our grants.
I've just had a thought. If, for example, it's not a company that's you're working directly with, but somebody who says, I want to develop a certain food product, for example, can they come to you and then you assist them with the skills that they need, whether it's, in the chemicals, food chemistry, or whatever the details might be? Or do you have a database of graduates that you'd then be able to refer?
Yeah, so we don't necessarily have a database. I mean, every skill needs, the skill that you're talking about, as an example, is a food technologist. So if we will fund you as a business to get a graduate and that can work with you, and we pay them a stipend. And then you can work with that person who will then enhance your products through their understanding of food technology or food science.
Right.
Because you can't be a food scientist unless you've gone to varsity to study that. Food technology, you have to go to a University of Technology to study that. And then we've got different technicons, which are University of Technologies, that have got food technology departments that assist small businesses with enhancing their products. So those are universities initiatives, and we work hand in hand with them. They've got their own of advertising, the services that they offer. However, from our side, once you are in our space, then and apply for such interventions, we do fund them.
Absolutely fascinating. Well, wishing you all of the best. I hope you really get from this workshop what you as the food and beverages SETA need. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you also for your time.
And so there you have it, Noktula Mulela. From the food and beverages SETA. It really is such a perfect opportunity for the various SETAs to come together for this project management unit to make sure that they're able to share data and information amongst themselves, but also to get the best practices from other organizations that are successfully doing this, like SASA, for example. We'll continue to chatting more to the various CEOs and finding out what their needs are and how this PMU is going to help address them. Today sees a gathering of various SETAs as well as other organizations that are sharing as far as product management is concerned, structures, pipelines, value chains, making sure that there's accountability and deliverables at a level that is consistent and excellent. Joining us as well this afternoon is Dr. Mashongwane, the CEO of the Mining Qualifications Authority. Good to have you with us, Doc.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what are your expectations of today and just your insights thus far as the project management unit is concerned?
For me, when I received the invitation, I was quite excited because it came at a timely period because as SETAs, we are all seized with the challenges, particularly of how do we manage our business. We are in the main a funding agencies with purpose, and therefore we need to be quite careful as to how we execute this mandate in a very accountable way. So I then had to put everything aside and said, look, I'll come to this platform, firstly to explore and learn how other people are doing it, as well as possibly share some of the challenges we're experiencing and also the successes.
And maybe let's start with that. What are some of the challenges that you within your SETA are experiencing as far as project management is concerned?
Look, just zooming into the management of our funds in the main discretionary grants, you then have to have proper structures, governance structures that execute this mandate, but then within certain parameters of the law as well as with a particular mandate. Now, this is time-bound because it has to happen almost every year at a particular period in time. It's seasonal, and lest you get blamed that you fail to perform the mandate. So one of the biggest challenges the structures that are in place in terms of assisting in project management of this nature, such as your very internal people who could then be, tainted in terms of failure to separate duties and functions, because they end up, of course, conflating governance processes in terms of you are a project manager, but you then also participate in the evaluation processes and so forth. So I really needed to understand how best can we execute this mandate, in a very transparent but also accountable way. I'm also trying to avoid a situation of trying to get another unit from outside the organization, because that then becomes financially expensive and a bit cumbersome, and which may also have its own challenges. So I was looking forward to say, how best can we manage this? And I realized that as it was discussed, it's a sector-wide challenge, but also the acting CFO from the department, of course, his experience is more on supply chain, but then he then shared some kind of ideas of how we can then at least mitigate some of these things. I'm actually looking forward to Service SETA, coming up with this groundbreaking concept of a better framework on project management, in particular on how best can SETAs be successful in carrying out their mandate.
One of the things that I noticed in the conversation that came out, especially when the Deputy Minister was speaking as well, is how project management needs to go beyond just a tick box experience.
Very true.
But also at the same time, there are two parties that are involved. There's the SETA itself, the internal regulations that you're speaking about, issues of accountability, of transparency within the workforce itself. But then there's the end user who is the beneficiary. And what the Deputy Minister was speaking about is the fact that we need to make sure that they are employable and employed at the end. Do you think that there's capacity to handle this large spectrum, internal as well as the external expectations?
Look, the question of capacity is like an ongoing kind of controversy because one has to really understand the real founding mandate of SETAs as intermediary institutions to bridge the gap between the supply side as well as the labor market side of how can we make graduate coming from university, from TVETs, from even the unemployed, how can we provide opportunities for them to be employable, and secondly, for them to start their own businesses. We are not creators of jobs. The economy itself, South Africa as a whole, is responsible, all of us, to ensure that our economy grows and jobs are in abundance. So it then becomes a bit challenging for expectation that SETAs can actually create jobs. They don't, but they rather make people employable. However, what we do is, in terms of your question, capacity, yes, we extend ourselves by saying, how best can we ensure that that which we are providing, which is the support for employability, for opportunities, how then do we make a follow-through through our impact studies, tracer studies, to check whether the beneficiaries have been employed or not, and what is it that we can do if there are any impediments and stumbling blocks, whether from the supply side or even from the labor market, what is it that we can do? So we engage with employers, because I'm serving the mineral mining sector, so I have to understand the challenges that the sector is experiencing and where there could be opportunities. I mean, we conduct annual research reviews, the sector skills plan, to say this is where the sector is going and this is the direction in which we now need to channel our support. So that's to an extent of us as a SETA now trying to assist the process. But unfortunately, sometimes we are then misunderstood as if we are directly responsible. We continue to do that. However, we're doing our level best in terms of making people employable. Yes, that's why I was saying, as SETAs, it's like we're running an annual project which needs to be managed, because it's almost basically one and the same activities that we conduct. Of course, there will be different demands, different needs that must be infused. But on annual basis, we know that there has to be planning, and that planning has also to be informed by research, and there has to be stakeholder engagements right from the employer side, from the universities, from the TVETs, from the communities, the unions, and so forth. And we then need to be working towards a particular targets, and those targets, we then have to make follow-up as to whether we have been impactful or not over a period of time.
And that's the word that has been used quite often, this word impact.
Yes.
But as we round up, Doctor, tell us more about your particular SETA, the Mining Qualifications Authority, what exactly that you do, and who benefits from you, who should be coming and knocking at your door.
Yeah, the Mining SETA is one of the first agencies or entities to be established. We just completed 30 years and celebrated it this year, 5 years ahead of the rest of other SETAs. Obviously, we were established under a different act then, by the former President Mandela because of the challenges, fatalities in the mining space. So we actually established as an agency to say how best can we develop skills of the mine workers in those days, as well as make them safety conscious. So we, of course, evolved when the SETAs were then established. We were then deemed to be a SETA. Now we are fully integrated in the space. That's why our name is quite different from all other SETAs. So far, as we are celebrating the 30th milestone, we actually giving statistics to say we have trained so many. That is over, I think that's close to over 10 million of the beneficiaries that went through our system. And we have also spent quite a lot. So we are actually making opportunities for the university graduates in the mining space, those who want to be mining engineers, geologists, you name it. We work with the likes of Council for Geoscience, all public entities in the Department for Mineral and Petroleum Resources. The jewelry, I mean, some of the people who really dressed up the Miss South Africa, even in the past, in terms of jewelry, these are some of our beneficiaries. And we also plow back into the mine communities to say now that mines deplete, the environments and so forth. So how best can we plow back? So we go back to the young people, to the adults in the space to say, what kind of programs can we then offer you for your own social livelihood? These are short courses and so forth. So that's what we do in the mining space. And we have produced a number of artisans because we are one of the SETAs that produce a high number of artisans, electricians, boiler makers in the space. But we also, of course, 20% of our budget go to other discipline other than core mining, the lawyers, the medical practitioners, and so forth. Yeah, we have done a lot. I've also encouraged most of our graduates everywhere to say, please do not just stop by saying you have been trained by this particular college or university. You name them as your alma mater. You forget to say through the support of a SETA. That's why people do not think that we are impactful, because the very graduates do not mention us. And yet we are the support. We also assist training the lecturers at CT, at TVETs, at university to ensure that the capacity at the supply side is sustained. So there's quite a lot that we are doing.
Well, maybe that can be the birthday present that you give to yourself as the Mining Qualifications Authority, actually just going back down memory lane and finding some of those over 10 million beneficiaries over the years, and really communicate to South Africa and South Africans what you do and the impact that you've really had in our societies, and that you continue to have, especially with the rehabilitation of former mining towns as well.
Indeed.
So thank you so much, Doctor, for that.
My pleasure.
Thank you. That's Dr. Mashongwane there from the Mining Qualifications Authority. How intriguing that they are actually, the original ones. As he mentioned, that's why their names is so different from the names of the other SETAs, but originally put in place in order to train and safeguard those who are working within the mines, and that scope has increased over the years. They continue to this day also rehabilitating the former mining towns. So this is the Product Management Unit launch, an entire workshop of seeing how the various SETAs can streamline their offerings, making sure that there is impact at the end of their rand. As we wrap up, one message comes to mind: that funding alone is not enough. What's important is the project delivery, the implementation, and perhaps most importantly, the delivery and the benefits, which are indeed sustainable at the end of it all. And the Project Management Unit is a step towards improving that delivery. Our conversations today focused on the challenges experienced. They focused on the solutions as well as opportunities. From myself, Tami Ngubeni, this has been from the Services SETA, the Get Up and Level Up podcast. I'll see you next time.